Dear friends, we want to welcome you from Los Angeles, a wonderful place in Los Angeles. And here we are together with my very good friend, Igor Yankelevich.
Thank you.
And Igor is a student of Sinai Academy, right, Igor?
Yes, sir.
And we were together for last almost 30 years.
You've known me for 30 years, probably more. You know my brother, my family.
And it's amazing. And now we met, and actually we share a pain, and the pain of what happened in Israel, and actually in a way also what's happening in the United States of America, including in both New York and Los Angeles. And I wanted to ask you, Igor, so what do you feel about these events? How do you react to that? What do you take on it?
Breaks my heart. Breaks my spirit. I'm ashamed for this country and for the whole world.
Why are you ashamed for this country? I mean, the country in terms of
There's
States of America
no-
supports Israel currently in the country.
Have you watched TV lately? Have you seen the news lately? Should I show you the clips? In LA, in New York, in Chicago, in Austin, in Houston, in Seattle, every single city in this country, every state in this country, every city in this world.
What do they do?
There's rallies, there's demonstrations,
Of Hamas supporters.
Hamas supporters, and they're all chanting the same thing. Israel go to hell. Death to all Jews.
Death to all Jews.
They're supporting terrorism. They are supporting the death and the destruction of every Jew on earth. And this isn't the first time that it's happened. And unfortunately, and it hurts me to say that, but it won't be the last time. Every generation, there are people who want the death and the destruction of the Jewish nation. But this time might be even worse than ever before, because now the whole world is brainwashed. It's not just a select few people. This isn't Berlin 1935, where one city and one country and one nation is spreading these hateful lies. This is the whole world. They are collectively supporting these terrorists.
Do you think it's not a phenomenon of few and crazy? You think this is
It's not crazy.
something widespread?
These people they're uneducated, they're ignorant, they're hateful, they're anti-Semitic, and it was always in them. This hate was always in them. You know, I'm naive. I'm a naive person because my whole life I thought generally, with the exception of a few, generally people, they are filled with good and they have goodness in them. And then when I see these rallies and these demonstrations all over the world, then I realize, you know what? No, I was wrong. I was naive and I was idealistic. These people, they had the hate in them always, but now it's okay. Now it's okay to hate. Now it's okay to be open about it and to talk about it. You hate Israel? Israel should go to hell? It's okay, you can say that. Before it wasn't okay, but now it is. And there's so much clarity. And now I can see it. Now you can see it. It's right in front of your face. They're not hiding.
But the truth is, Israel suffered such a barbaric attack against its citizens. 1,400 people murdered, 7,000 people wounded, 240 people were abducted, became hostages. Really, the world should express compassion and support for Israel and condemn
They had
terror.
compassion for about a second. They had compassion for a second,
And
and then the world woke up.
And the truth is, the next day, United Nations head claimed, this attack was not in the vacuum.
The United Nations.
That in itself
the
is a
United
justification of horrible crimes.
The UN is worthless and useless, full of anti-Semites. And they will be happy to see the destruction of Israel. But it will never happen. I said this to you earlier. Israel will prevail. They always have and they always will. There's story after story, generation after generation, going back thousands and thousands of years. Everyone always tries to annihilate the Jewish nation, but nobody ever has. They fail time and time again, and it's not a coincidence. You know, we are a small nation, Rabbi. Small nation. You know how many people there are in the world? 7 billion. You know how many Jewish people there are? 16 million, Rabbi. We are a tiny, tiny denomination of people. We are a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the world population. And yet everybody wants to see us gone. Everybody wants to wipe us off the face of the earth. But yet somehow we come together and we defeat all of our enemies time and time again. Every generation. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? We have strength. And we will prevail. Israel will prevail. The Jewish nation will prevail. I'm not worried about it. It breaks my heart that this has happened, that so many innocent people have died. These people were butchered in their sleep, early in the morning, slaughtered.
Raped and burned.
Slaughtered. And then these supporters, they go out there and they call these Hamas terrorists, what do they call them? They call them freedom fighters. They are savages. They're not human beings. I said this also to you earlier. They're not human beings. They are scum. They are less than scum. And every single person who supports them, every single one of these supporters and followers out there with their signs, death to Israel, signs with Nazi symbols on them, Israel should go to hell. All of these signs that they're holding up, they are complicit. They are involved.
Partners in crime.
They are partners in crime. They are just as evil as these savage terrorists. And it breaks my heart.
How do you explain yourself this horrific expression of anti-Semitism? Why do they hate us?
We're the chosen people. And they hate that we feel that way. They hate that we say that. But let me tell you something. Do you know where all the anti-Semitism in Germany and Europe, where it really started? It didn't start with Hitler in the 1930s or in the 1920s. It started a few years before that, in the very early 20th century. Maybe even in the late 1800s, the late 19th century. Because all of these people around Europe who were struggling and not doing well, they looked around. And they looked around, who is successful? Who is doing good? I'm not doing good. I want to have something more. I don't have enough. Who does have enough? Who has more than enough? Whose business is successful? Whose life is successful? And almost every single time when they looked around, it was a Jewish person and a Jewish family. And they wanted it. And they were jealous
Jealousy.
of it. And that's when they said, the reason why, this is how anti-Semitism started in Europe. Those people said, the reason why I don't have enough is because they have it all. The reason why my business isn't successful is because their business is successful. So we should take it away from them.
But the truth is, even this jealousy, would be directed at wealthy people, but we know that they hated the poor Jews in Ukraine and Russia as well. And it really dated back to the intolerance of Christianity towards Jews. And even before that, idol worshiper who hated Jews as well. And you went to a school called Sinai Academy. And you know what Sinai means in Hebrew? Sinai. Really, Sinai hints to the word hatred. And the rabbis reveal it is because Jews received at Mount Sinai universal moral values. And those who were against these values hate us because of that. They don't hate us because we are Jews. They hate us because of the Jewish message of morality. And the one who was very open about it was actually Adolf Hitler. He said, the only thing that I believe in the world is the survival of the fittest. And he kind of supported the idea of social Darwinism. And he believed that the world needs to be, managed the same way as the Mother Nature. And in nature you see that the strongest subjugates or destroy the weakest, and therefore the same has to happen in this world. And the only ones who stand on his way for Third Reich were the Jews, because they inflicted two wounds to mankind, he said. One is circumcision on the body and conscience of the soul. So the Jewish morality. Jews were the only ones who supported or protected the rights of the weak. And therefore he said, I don't care if Jews are assimilated or not. Because the same with like Moses or Jesus Christ or Karl Marx, they all speak about the same. Basically the rights of the weak people.
You said
protected them.
something. You said survival of the fittest. That's why we're still here. Because even though, and that's why I mentioned the 16 million
Okay.
Jewish figure.
Yes.
Even though we are such a small fraction,
Minority.
we are such a small minority. Only 16 million people out of 7 billion. But when we are together, when we join forces, there is nothing stronger. There is no force stronger, and that's why we have prevailed before. That's why we will prevail today, and that's why we will prevail again and
Forever.
again forever.
Because we are the nation of eternity. But in that I would say, I actually, whenever I taught this in Sign Academy and other programs, I used to say that, yes, we agree with an idea of survival of the fittest, but not fittest physically, not fittest in violence, but
Our spirit.
right, more developed or fittest, if you want, in a spiritual way, which means those who dedicated to help others, because what goes around comes around. Those who dedicated to kindness. And therefore, as we discussed actually sitting at the table, even though the wars are fought with guns, they are won with hearts. And my question now, when we see such amazing violence, I mean calls basically for violence on the streets of
You want to talk about
LA?
hearts, Rabbi?
Yes.
There is no country, there's no nation in this world that has a bigger heart right now than Israel. Because they are
Yes.
fighting this war
Yes.
in an unimaginable way.
Against
They
the-
are questioned at every single move. They provide evidence every 2 seconds of everything that they're doing. They're providing the details of everything to the whole world. Full transparency. No country has ever had to do anything like this. Ever.
Yes.
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, nobody questioned the entry of America into the Second World War. It was obvious. You are defending your country, you are defending your people. But when Israel does it, they are evil.
And
they
the
should
world
go to
condemns.
hell, and the
Correct,
whole
correct,
world condemns
correct,
them.
Correct. So what do we do? What can we do?
Me and you,
Right. Because we can get upset, we can get angry.
we have to do
But
everything. We have to do everything that we can to support our brothers and sisters in Israel. You know how many family members I have in Israel? 7 million. You
Yes,
know why?
yes.
Because that's how many Jews there are in Israel. They are all my brothers and all my sisters. They are my family because every single Jew is connected to each other.
And do you know what?
And we have to stand
Igor,
up for each other.
My son, who you know, David Michal, went to volunteer. The day it happened, he already went to his unit and joined his unit. I asked him later on, I said, David Michal, why did you do it? They didn't even call you. He said, I have 7 million reasons to do it. Every
Rabbi,
single Jew.
I would do the same thing. I
You said-
promise you I would do the same thing. I hope that your son will be safe. I hope that he will be safe. He will come back. He is a hero. Every single one of these soldiers is a hero. The IDF, they are fighting not just for you and not just for me and not just for every Jewish person on earth. They are fighting for the whole world. They are fighting for civilization, for humanity, even though 90% of the world doesn't understand it and doesn't want to believe it. The IDF is fighting for the future of the whole world. And I'm very proud of them. I would do the same thing your son did. Nobody needs to call me. Nobody needs to ask me. I would get on a plane right now, but I'm not a soldier.
Igor, you don't need to get on a plane.
I'm not a soldier, and I don't think that I would be very
Igor,
useful.
you don't need to get on a plane
But
because you're in a place which is extremely, extremely important and decisive both for IDA, for Israel, and for the entire world. Because believe it or not, but this war is not only fought on the battlefield. It is also fought on the screens of the TVs or computers or the cell phones. It is an information war.
This is
as
the
well.
difference between this
And
conflict and all the other conflicts.
and-
There's a social media war.
Correct. And you currently making movies, creating movies in Hollywood. So who can actually, and you can make a huge difference if we can think together what we can do. And we can produce materials to explain to the world. And even if 90% of the world will not hear, but only 1%, or maybe 1% or 10% will, it's still very, very important. Because words matter. And as you know that God created this world with words. Let there be light. All right? God said, and there was light. So Your words have
And
a
there
power
will be
to
and
create.
there will be light again.
And will be light again, but your words have a power to create. So my suggestion is actually to think about how can we create messages that are targeting or turning to people that are undecided yet and may think or rethink their positions and maybe understand better what Israel is facing.
I think it's very important to communicate to the whole world. There is still a part of me that is admittedly skeptical that there are many people who the hate that they have in their hearts, it will still be there and it will still remain there. And that no matter what I say, or no matter what you say, no matter how much evidence these soldiers put right in front of your face, there will still be deniers. And they
Yes.
will still come up with excuses.
Of course.
And they will still come up with wrongful accusations, and no one will be convinced. That's the skeptical side of me.
But the optimistic part says,
There is a part of me that, the last 7 weeks, 8 weeks, one thing that I've asked myself is, what do you believe in? I ask myself all the time. But particularly these past 2 months, Igor, what do you believe in? And I say to myself, I believe in Israel, I believe in the Jewish nation, and I believe in humanity.
beautiful. Beautiful. This is very Jewish idea, because if Jewish people would not believe in humanity, we would not be able to fulfill our mission to be the light upon the nation. And remember, Abraham Avinu, our father Abraham, prayed for Sodom, for the evildoers of Sodom. He turned to God and asked God not to destroy them, because he believed that these people have chance to change. Even though they opposed him, even though he was his enemies, he still believed that people can change.
I was telling you a story about my family earlier, my grandfather.
Tell me.
He fought in the Second World War. And I think, I don't know, he passed away a long time ago. And he never talked about that time in his life, ever, to anyone. I asked my father, tell me about him. And my father said, I'll tell you whatever you want to know, but don't ask me about his life during the war. And I said, why? And he said, because he never talked about it to me. He never talked about it to anyone. But I think that part of the reason why he spent years fighting the Nazis in the Second World War is because he said to himself, if I keep fighting and we win, then there will be another generation of people. And then another generation, and another generation. And I will be a part of that. I will be a part of that reality that I helped create these future generations of life and humanity and civilization because of what I'm doing right now during the war. I think and I hope that that's what was on his mind. So today, I want to do whatever I can and everything I can. Because the world is not going to end today. The life is not going to end today. It's going to go on and on and on. And I want there to be some hope. I want there to be some kind of light at the end of this tunnel. And if I can do something to bring that light, then I have to do it. That's my responsibility. That's all of our responsibility, to do whatever we can so that there can be some light at the end of this tunnel for our children and for our grandchildren and for future generations, so that they can look back the way I look back on what happened 80 years ago and 90 years ago, the way we look back and we're proud of everything that they did and all the fighting and all the sacrifices so that we could have freedom, so that I could live safely and soundly. We have to do everything we can so that the future generations will look back on us and say the same thing about us. They will look back and they will say, you see, 90% of the world wanted to annihilate them, but there was a few who stood up and they fought and they battled and they came together, and their strength and their unity, it overcame the majority of what the majority of the world wanted to happen. That's what I hope.
Actually, the lesson of Hanukkah is that a little bit of light can disperse a lot of darkness. A lot of darkness can, fades away with a little bit of light. So, but we need to believe in ourselves. Because sometimes the reason we don't even begin, we don't even try, because we say, who am I to do it? They're not going to listen to me. So we need two things. We need, as you said, to believe in humanity, but even more importantly, we need to believe in ourselves. And the way that is believe in God. If God created us, put us in this situation, and we're facing this darkness, it means God wanted us to do something. It means God believes in you, believes in me, that we can do it.
I was telling you earlier about, I think it was the next day or the day after the October 7th attack. Called my brother. We've had a million conversations about it since, but that first conversation, he said to me, because I couldn't understand. I said, he's older than me, and he's always been like a mentor, like figure to me. And so I asked him, like, how? Tell me. I need to understand.
How can that happen?
How can this happen? It's unimaginable. Please tell me, make sense of this. And he said, I will give you a reason why this happened, but you're not going to like it. And he said, are you sure? He said to me, are you sure you want me to tell you? Because you're not going to like it. I'm going to give you the reason, but you're not going to like it. And I said, tell me. And he said, from time to time, Jews, they forget certain things, and they need to be reminded. They need to be reminded of what it means to be Jewish. And God sends these reminders to us. And I jokingly said, can't God remind us in a different way? In a better way? But I thought about what he said, what my brother said, and a few weeks went by, and I said, you know what, he was right. Because I looked around, and I saw all this hate coming from all these different places and all these different cities, all over the world. All over the world, there's these demonstrations for Hamas against Israel in Australia, and in England, and in Germany, and in Switzerland, and in America, and in Poland, and in France, and in Spain. Every single country. But then I also saw something else. Then I also saw the gathering of Jews in Washington, D.C. 300,000 Jews. Not a single flag was burned. Not a single clash with police. Not a single arrest. Not a single fight. People were together. 300, the biggest gathering of Jews
in American history.
In American history. And then I thought about what my brother said. He said we need to be reminded. And then I saw this gathering of all these Jews. And I said, the Jewish nation has never been closer than it is right now. Because of this horrible, unimaginable, unfathomable attack that happened on October 7th. That led to the Jewish nation being closer than it ever has. It breaks my heart that we needed a reminder like this. My whole life I've thought about the Holocaust and the Second World War, partly because of my family connection. My grandfather fought in the war, and his entire family was killed. Aside from that, I like history. I like to know, how did we get here? How did that bring us here? And I always did a lot of research into the Holocaust and the Second World, because I needed to know. I needed to understand how could something like that happen? How could the world allow it to happen? But most of all, how did God let it happen?
Well, asking about God is like asking why Cain killed Abel, which is the first question. And the answer to that is people have freedom of choice. It's not God's job to monitor and protect people from doing something wrong. Rather, our question, what do I do? Not what God does, what do I do? And here I wanted maybe just to share one final thought from my side. On Simchas Torah, October 7th, I was in Israel. And I was in the synagogue with the Russian yeshiva actually, and like we didn't really understand what's going on when it happened. When it finished and we realized what was going on, I was walking home. And I said to myself, a horrible terrorist attack happened on October 7th. And it began the war. The war began. In the same way as Yom Kippur was, Israel was attacked on Yom Kippur 50 years ago.
1973.
And this war, until today, is called Yom Kippur War. This war most likely will be still called, not October 7th, but Simchas Torah War. And I asked myself, why? Why happened on Simchat Torah, on the one of the most beautiful, happy holidays? And I said to myself that probably it's a message to us that not the one who's victorious is happy, but the one who is happy, choosing happiness, is victorious. How a person achieve happiness in life? By fulfilling his mission. If we do not deviate of whom we are, and as your brother told you, if we remember who we are, that we light upon the nations, and we behave in a particular way, united not just because of the war, but in peacetime, and we share the moral values, and we're an example of morality and kindness, and fairness and justice to the world.
Morality and values.
And we communicate these values as light. That will give us the sense of satisfaction and meaning and power to overcome all the enemies that face us. May we celebrate good occasions together, Igor, with you and your family, sending regards to our community.
Thank you.
And looking forward to hear beautiful and great ideas how we can communicate our message to the world through the means of Hollywood media that you know so well.
Rabbi Kritzen, every time I see you, I said this earlier, every time I see you, it feels like a little miracle. Every
Definitely.
time we see each other.
Sometimes it's a big miracle. Like last time at the Western Wall at Kotel in Jerusalem, and now actually he also, the fact that you came, drove from so far and back. And I hope it will lead to many other beautiful occasions together, and we should celebrate our victory and our happiness together as well.
Amen.
All
Thank
the
you.
best to all
Thank
of
you.
us.